to all my With Tracy podcast listeners and viewers. I'm delighted that today I've got another guest, another lady on my focus. My series is focused on all women entrepreneurs this time. Now, my guest this week is barely actually a year into her entrepreneurial journey after being 20 years in the corporate arena. Holding senior positions for a number of FTSE 100 companies, she had a great career, but in her own words, I suddenly realised success didn't always feel good, and I'd sacrificed a lot of myself along the way. Fast forward, and Jeni Carroll Coaching and Consultancy was launched, and yes, by the lovely Jeni Carroll herself. After her own experiences, spending years struggling, her aim now is to help women blend work and life so that their success feels great, supercharging their confidence and self-belief so they can live life full and creating more time, energy and happiness. And Jeni wrote to me, she said, from being a senior leader to my own boss has been a huge shift. I've learned so much and would love to share the lessons I've learned with anyone who's looking to take the leap or at the beginning of their business journey. I'm so delighted that Jeni did write to me, and even more so that she is with me, with Tracy today. So after that introduction, hi Jeni.
Hey Tracy, it's great to see you.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, it's, brilliant that you're a guest today with me.
Yeah.
Now, before we sort of get into business and all your sort of experiences and the things you've learned, which I know you want to tell us about, it's always great to get a bit of background on my guest so that my listeners can kind of put you into context. So where did it all begin and where did life start for Jeni?
Oh, well, you can't actually tell from my accent, but I was born in Manchester.
No, you can't.
Yeah, so moved around a little bit and ended up when I was about 10 in Milton Keynes because my dad moved to London with his work, and I think at the time that was as close as my parents could get to London. And then I went off to university in York, and I was thinking, oh, I'll probably never go back to Milton Keynes, and then I did go back to live with my mum and dad for a little bit and ended up buying a house there, and then 12 years ago now, I decided to move to London for a year to see how it would go. And I'm still here.
Oh, fantastic. So you had a high level career for 20 years, didn't you, in very senior positions. Can you just, before we kind of get into you now as an entrepreneur, tell us what that was like for you at that kind of level?
Yeah, I mean, it was 20 years. I worked in sort of people communications, lastly sort of in HR, and I was always incredibly driven. I knew straight out of university that I wanted to be successful, whatever that meant. I don't think I realised at the time. So very much kind of was always looking for my next move, my next promotion. I loved it because I worked in financial services and the structure used to change all the time in the business. So my role evolved, I grew my team, and that was kind of where I really stepped into a leadership role. And I loved kind of developing people and leading a team. It was kind of one of the best parts of my career, and it was incredibly full on. And you mentioned earlier I help women who struggle because I gave a lot of myself to my career, and I defined myself so much by my career that although it looked amazing and often felt really good, I was pushing so much of what I actually really wanted out of life to one side because actually my career came first. And so it was an interesting experience. It's something I'm so grateful for, but it's wonderful to be able to kind of look back on it now a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I was also going to ask you about the pressures in that kind of arena at that sort of level, really.
Yeah.
How did you find that? I mean, did you thrive on it or?
Yeah, and it's a really interesting question because I've had to kind of figure this out actually, because I think there was a massive part of me that loved the busyness, loved the kind of adrenaline. So I worked in communications. So the thing with communications is there's always something happening. I've done a lot of crisis communications in my time. And when something goes wrong at 5 p.m. on a Saturday, my job was to step in and to make sure that we communicated it in the right way, we managed the message. So I got very used to working at pace. And actually, I'm pretty good at getting things done to a deadline and doing all of that sort of stuff, but it kind of used to flip. So sometimes the pressure felt great and other times it just felt a little bit too much and things. And especially during COVID last year, I was still in my corporate role then, and there was, Boris would do sort of 5 p.m. announcements on a Sunday, and we'd be like, okay, what time should we get on a call together to decide what to do?
Yeah. I do understand that. I think there is an element that, when we are under pressure, it can be an adrenaline rush and you love it, and it's kind of that roller coaster, isn't it? And then you come down and then you're like, oh, and then you're up again. You're all over the place, really. And you kind of think you like it, but then you think, maybe I don't like this, it's too much.
No, and it's so interesting because for so long I was like, I'm the type of person who gets their homework done on a Sunday night. And, and actually when I transitioned into leadership, I had to learn, because I would do things very last minute, because that worked for me. I'd be like, oh, deadline, right, I better do this. And I had to learn that lots of people don't wish to work in that way. And actually, if I need something in 2 weeks, I need to tell my team 2 weeks beforehand rather than the day beforehand. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I remember like August always used to be quite quiet. So you'd go from being full pelt to kind of everyone was kind of on holiday. And I'd be like, this isn't very exciting, is it? I'd be looking for the adrenaline and I have to be like, no, hang on, this is nice because you've got time to think and do things.
Yeah.
But it's quite an interesting, I talk about kind of, I know we talk about the hamster wheel, I talk about sort of being on the merry-go-round of success, where you just keep going and you're always looking for the next thing or the lion around the corner and stuff, and it can be quite exhausting to live in that way.
Yeah. Now, on your website, Jeni, you said it was your divorce that basically stopped you in your tracks and made you take action. And you also say, and I quote, ditch guilt and self-doubt and rediscover your energy and passion. I wondered what that was like for you and how did you achieve it?
Yeah, no, definitely. And my divorce was maybe 7 years ago now. And, I met my ex-husband at university. So we'd been together a very long time. And it was quite a shock, and it sort of happened very quickly. And it just stopped me in my tracks. And I remember time just going so slowly. And I was just thinking, only 5 minutes have passed and it feels like 5 hours. I think for me, if I'm really honest, I had, it took me a while to process this when I was going through it, but I had always taken him for granted. I just assumed he would be there because he'd always been there, so I could focus on my career. So it did really give me perspective. And I remember for about 6 months just thinking, well, my marriage has ended. How is anything beating that? All the stuff that was coming up at work, I was just like, okay, fine, let's do it. So it was quite a sort of shock moment, but actually the bit for me was kind of rebuilding myself. And I think at the time I didn't know myself well enough to know that I could do that, if that makes any sense. I took myself off to a retreat in Ibiza, my first ever holiday alone. I spent time meditating. Previously I've been like, oh, meditation is for people who have nothing else to do and it's all slow and very boring. I really sort of learned to slow down and connect to myself, and in doing that I sort of put myself back together so much stronger than I was before, because I had a much stronger idea of who I was and what I could do. And I describe it as being incredibly liberating, because it made me recognize how amazingly strong I am as a person, and all of that doubt that I'd had about myself, all of the ways that I've been pushing myself at work weren't needed.
But what I'm really interested about is, at what point did you say, I'm going to do a retreat, I'm going to go on a retreat, I'm going to do this by myself? Because I always think, there has to be an element that we maybe think about. Does someone put that in your head? Do we read, or did you read something? What actually makes us kind of go from reading something in a magazine or someone saying something you think, actually, I'm going to go online and I'm going to do it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely. And I think it was probably, there was a point where I was trying to get some answers from my ex-husband, and they weren't really forthcoming. And there was just a particular point where I was like, I'm never going to get what I need from him. I actually have to find that myself. And I just remember seeing this retreat and going, well, that looks amazing. That's what I need. And I just booked it because I realized, I was like, maybe that will give me the answers that I'm looking for. It was kind of a search for something. I was kind of like, I have to do something differently right now.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? What it is that kind of triggers us to make that first step. Really. And anyway, and then you've gone on, and now let's go on, because I'd like to know then what inspired you. What was the next step to inspire you to set up your coaching business? And you also took yourself to do some training before you did that, didn't you? So what came first?
Yeah. No, so it's quite interesting. So I got to the point where I was in the sort of role that I've been doing when I got divorced, and I started to feel ready to do something different. I was like, okay, this is a good sign. I'm on the right road to recovery. I moved to another big corporate, and it was a really different industry. And I had a little bit of a like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? So I actually hired a coach to support me. And previously I'd only ever worked with coaches in-house. Like, I've been really lucky. I've been given sort of executive coaches and things like that. But this is the first time I'd reached out to somebody. And she helped me to kind of rebuild my confidence in my new role, establish myself. But one of the things that she helped me do was recognise that I could actually have my own business and work for myself. And that might sound odd, but up until that point, I was someone who worked in corporate, and I was going to be in corporate until I was retirement age and then have my pension off I go into the sunset. That was my path in life. I wasn't someone who could run my own business. And she got me thinking about it. And I was like, oh. So I think 6 months later, I was like, I love coaching because I'd done it a lot through work because I had big teams. So I was always kind of coaching and mentoring people. And I loved kind of helping people do what they thought they couldn't do and make it feel possible. So I was like, I'm going to train as a coach. So I did that 6 months later, and I did it alongside my full-time job. I'm not actually sure how I did that. But I loved it so much. It was just what I've been looking for. So that was kind of how I did the training. And then I was kind of toying with, do I quit my career and step up on my own? Am I brave enough to do that? And then COVID hit last year and work was incredibly busy. And I just sort of had to put the business on the back burner for a little bit. And I had a couple of clients that I was working with, but I wasn't doing anything to build the business. And then I had the opportunity to take redundancy at the end of last year. And I just thought, this is my opportunity, because if I'm really honest, Tracy, I don't know if I'd have been able to walk away from my career and my salary and all of that. I think that would have been incredibly hard, but that just felt like a bit of a gift from the universe, really. So I thought, I'm going to take that decision. I'm going to try working for myself full time and see how it goes.
That's interesting, isn't it? That it's kind of fate, in a way, or something that you didn't know was going to happen, the redundancy that kicks you to make that other decision, which, as you say, you might not have made otherwise. I wonder how many other of our listeners or ladies out there, or anyone out there, feels the same, actually, that it's there in the back of their head to sort of, I want to do something. But they've never been brave enough to go, okay, I'm going to hand in my notice now, or I can juggle the two things, because a lot of people do that and then they make that jump.
I completely agree. And I think one of the challenges I had, and I probably beat myself up a little bit about this, is it was because my job was very big and encompassing, I didn't really have much headspace left. So I found it quite difficult to build it alongside my job. I do think there's probably lots of women who would love to do things differently, but it's easier sometimes, isn't it? Even though you're kind of like, I know this isn't quite right, but my desires are over here and they just seem too big, so I'm just going to stay here because it's safer. And that's one of the things that coaching can help with, isn't it? Is help you kind of recognize what you could be and help you get that plan to get there, so it doesn't feel so scary.
Jenny, with your coaching business, what kind of women do you primarily work with? At the moment, who are your target audience, if you like?
So I work with women mainly in corporate. I do work with some business owners as well, tend to be sort of mid-30s onwards, early 40s, and very ambitious women, very driven women. They've got some great career success, but it's just not feeling good for them anymore. They know something's not right. They know that they want more out of life. And often I help them, because I talk about being a sort of career and confidence coach, because often I find at a senior level, women haven't really been supported to be senior and to operate in the right way, and they're still trying to do all the things, trying to get the validation from their boss, from their peers, and their team, working extra hours to prove themselves. And that is just, it just makes you feel so rubbish, to be honest, and kind of send you on the path to burnout. So I kind of really tried to help women sort of readjust and look at how they can actually feel brilliant about what they bring to the table and what they want out of life.
Great. And have you found that since you've sort of started, and with the pandemic, do you think there's more women now reconsidering or thinking, actually, I need to talk this through? I don't know. I just feel in many ways this whole, you know, what we've all been through in the last 2 years has given many of us that time to sort of stop and think about what we really want. And perhaps reaching out, feeling, you know, more confident in a start to reach out to someone for some help.
I think so, and it's such an interesting journey. And you know, if I think about last year, I really struggled with the pandemic because I'm an extrovert. I like people. Suddenly, I was working from home, and it was just, you know, it was all, you know, there was a lot going on. And then earlier this year, of course, we had the other lockdown, so or the third lockdown, whichever one it was. And I just think it's quite easy for people to fall into a bit of a rut. I found this the other day. I was like, I wear yoga pants every day. This is not me. I like nice dresses. What's going on? So I think people are starting to feel like, what's next? Because, you know, we didn't have any control over the pandemic, but actually maybe there's something that we can do to own, you know, what happens as we go forward. And, you know, you can never control outside circumstances, but putting yourself into that position, I do think people are much more open to it. And look at kind of the Great Resignation and things like that. People are kind of going, I want more. You know, I want a company that allows me to work flexibly, or I want to work for myself, or all of those things. I don't want to be working like 80 hours a week and things like that, which you can sometimes be doing in sort of senior roles. So,
well, I guess you mentioned it earlier. You mentioned the hamster wheel or the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
I guess what happened with the lockdowns is it took us off that round stroke hamster wheel. So for a lot of us, or a lot of people, you know, we stopped, and I think we started off thinking, oh, I've got no hamster wheel to cling on to. To, you know, right, okay, I've got a bit of time to do this, or I don't know, suddenly your mind is not so clogged with everything. But the things that you perhaps haven't, like you said, you didn't have time to think about, you've had time to think about. Reassessment, you know, and appreciating life. Gosh, this can suddenly happen. Something like this can happen so quickly. We don't know what else is around the corner. Like, you know, grab life, I guess. Completely
agree. And it's kind of, you know, I used to always have lots in my diary and things like that. And you know, that's changed now. And now I know, actually, I love stuff in my diary because I do like to see people. I do like to do things. But I keep every other weekend as free as I can, so I know that I've got a bit of space for myself and things. And it's just being mindful about those choices that you want to make, isn't it? And I think we've got that opportunity.
Yeah, no, definitely. Now, I know that one area you help women, and you've mentioned it, is if they're beginning to feel overwhelmed by everything. And it's one of those things that I know that me about a lot of people when I'm mentoring them or giving business advice. You know, it's very easy, especially if you've started up your own business and you've only been running short time, you've got to do everything. So Jeni, I just wondered how you deal with being overwhelmed. Are you very good at taking your own advice?
Yeah. I totally am, but it happens to me too, and I have to really work at it. I think I get very excited by lots of things. And I love being creative. One of the things I love about my own business is I can create things and I can do whatever I want to do. And then I have to go, but you're just one person. So I've had to really balance. So it is a constant watch for me, because what I try to make sure I'm doing is enough stuff that lights me up, makes me really excited, versus the stuff that needs to get done in the business in that space. But also knowing when I'm going to do it. It's very easy to go, oh, I'm going to do these 25 things next week. But in reality, you've got time to do 10 or 5 or whatever. And actually being really clear, no, you're not going to get everything done. That's when it gets overwhelming, when you're just like, I haven't got the time and the space to do this. But if you're kind of able to go, I'm going to have to prioritize, because I can put this all on my list because it has to be on my list. but I'm not going to get to it and it's going to make me feel stressed. Or I could be really like ruthless and I'm just going to do these 3 things today, or however you work. That's my tip. So, but I do think it is kind of spotting the signs of what is it that overwhelms you, what is it that kind of makes you feel that way, and kind of learning about yourself a little bit.
Yeah. I quite often say that in business, because people can get a bit frightened if you're talking about ideas, and you want to look at the business in a broader sense for the future, but that can actually, for some people, really scare them, because it's like, well, how am I going to do that? And you have to say, no, you might not do it now. And so I've kind of got this thing where you go, no, this is what you can achieve now, and this is the plan. But actually what you do is you car park this so that you look at this when you have got time to do it, and then you can structure it in. But what you don't do is what you do is you capture the ideas or the thoughts, but you don't lose them.
I think that makes total sense. And one of my sort of favourite tips I always share is, if you're feeling actually, when you're in that panic and it can be quite hard to see the way forward, I literally get an A3 sheet of paper and I will put everything that's on my mind on that piece of paper, which helps just by clearing my head. But then I go through it and I kind of look at what is in my sphere of influence, what can I do absolutely nothing about, in which case, what is in my sphere of influence, and therefore what one small step could I take to make myself feel a little bit better about that. And I used to use that in corporate all the time when I had lots going on with the team, doing lots of things, and it works for my business as well. So it's something I always share with my clients, because it sounds simple, but it makes a world of difference.
No, that is a good tip. That is very good advice. Now, Jeni, in the intro, and one thing you said to me when you wrote to me was that you wanted to share your journey and the learnings you've had so far. So I'm now going to give you time to do that. So what have been your challenges?
It's been so interesting. So I started the business in March. I was on garden leave from January to March. So I was sort of doing some behind the scenes stuff. I've had to learn everything, how to do marketing, how to do sales, how to set up emails on an email tool. And you have to kind of learn everything, and then you have to kind of learn how it all fits together. And it has been the absolute biggest learning curve, but I've loved it. But it has challenged me so much every day, and kind of really pushed me. So one of my sort of things that I need to work on that has got so much better is like my patience. So I used to be very impatient if things didn't work straight away, like if I couldn't set up an email or something. And now I'm like, like I was using a sort of course system the other day, and I was like, I don't get this. Okay, I'm going to actually work it through and be a bit more patient with this now. So it's been a massive learning curve. But I think, there's the strategy of understanding how to run a business. And then there's the mindset piece, which people talk about. And I think for me, that's been the biggest journey, because I'd gone from this really successful career. I was absolutely where I wanted to be. So I'd reached kind of my goal in corporate. And then I wasn't that sort of high flying career woman anymore, who I used to very much define myself as her. And I had to really let go of that sort of image of myself and reinvent myself as this entrepreneur and CEO, and figure out what success looked and felt like. And that was quite a journey. I probably spent, I would say, 6 months of this year up and down on a roller coaster going, oh, this is amazing. Oh, I should just go back to corporate. Oh, this is amazing. Because I think in my head, I wanted to see success very, very quickly to prove to myself. Now I look back, I was trying to prove to myself. I help my clients not to prove themselves, but hey, every level has another devil. I was trying to prove it could work, and that I could, all of those sort of things. And actually, once I let go of that and relaxed into enjoying it and recognized that success is quite different for me these days and it feels good, that's when the magic started to happen. That's when I started to feel really in flow with my business and feel really good and really excited about the future.
I was going to ask you about that, actually, because that is the thing, isn't it? I'd come from that corporate background, and you might be in a real senior position, and everyone presumes that even if you go out on your own, you'll be absolutely fine. But of course, you still have the support of company or companies that you're working within. And also, and all your team members, because we all, it's everyone, isn't it, that influences you and helps drive, motivate you. And suddenly you're sort of sitting there like we are, in our homes going, okay, it all rests on our shoulders. And in we go, but we're on our own. Like there's no back, all that infrastructure is not there anymore. We've kind of got to create that, deliver that, be it as well, So yeah, that's interesting that you have, really kind of found that part of the journey quite challenging.
Yeah, and interesting as well, because working from home actually doesn't massively suit me. And I didn't enjoy it massively last year when I was still working in corporate, because I felt quite disconnected from my team and stuff like that, and I found it really hard. So one of the things that I've done over the past 4 or 5 months is I'll go to a co-working space a couple of days a week. I'll go and work in coffee shops, and I'll make sure that I'm meeting someone for sort of networking and things like that. So I've really made sure that my weeks feel tangible and there's lots to do, because I think at the start, and obviously we were in lockdown, you could spend days at home and it's like, oh, this is not exciting. Much as I love my flat, I do like to leave it and come back to it.
Yeah, I know that many of my friends and people that I've worked with were kind of, I'm similar to you. I like to be with people. I'm used to being with people and going here and doing that. And so when that first kind of hit and then sort of, you're on your own and you're running your own business, it was a bit like, oh, are you all right? You're coping. I kind of, after a while, it did take a while, but you do kind of reconnect with yourself a bit, I think, and go, I can deal with this. There are ways of dealing with it. Maybe I don't need to be charging around at 150 miles an hour all the time,
Yeah.
You can still be achieving without necessarily doing that, and still connect as well with people.
Yeah, and it's quite funny actually you talk about that. So one of the shifts that I had when I moved into my own business was kind of the hours that I was working. So I'd kind of do, I don't know, maybe 5 hours of really good focus work. Time would just go, I wouldn't notice time. And then I kind of run out of steam. And I was a bit like, well, I'm obviously not working hard enough. Because, and then I was kind of thinking, oh, hang on, when I was working in my job, I was talking to people, I was in meetings, I was picking stuff up for a team, all of these things, whereas I've just had some really focused work time. And actually that shift around doing it was really interesting, because it kind of, it comes back up for you, because you're like, oh, I should work more. And it's like, but are you doing the right things? Are you being productive? Are you having some great outputs? Doesn't matter how many hours you work, does it?
Now, you mentioned earlier about, you got some coaching and that kind of really inspired you. And mentor, I'm always intrigued to find out from my guests what other support they've had. Have they ever reached out and had a mentor? Was it something that they actually chose, or do they think they've had a mentor that just kind of naturally happened? And how you feel about that. Obviously, as a coach, I know that you're pretty biased like me. I'm a mentor, but I think it's still that area that people are never quite sure, how much is that really going to help me, and what other people have had.
No, I totally agree, and it's so interesting, because I've had so many people who've supported me over my career, and it's just, it's brilliant. And I think when I was kind of first in my career in my 20s, I had mentors, and I didn't really know why. I just thought it was an important thing to do, if I'm really honest. But I think once I started taking more ownership for my career, and I've had kind of sponsors. So I had an amazing boss when I worked in banking, who took a punt on me, promoted me to director, all of those things. Whereas, I think he recognised I could do it, and he pushed me to do it. So, without him, I probably wouldn't have got that promotion in that space. And I also think my peers have been amazing. I have got some brilliant people who are my friends, who are all running their own businesses now, actually, interestingly, who I worked with in corporate, and they were my support network in corporate, and now we're support network for each other in our businesses, which is wonderful. And I have one friend who's kind of 2 years ahead of me in business, and she's been amazing, because I go, oh, she goes, it's fine, you're on the right track. And I'm like, okay. But I think that's kind of getting a different perspective. I really value mentoring. I know, obviously, I think coaching is awesome, but I think mentoring is so valuable. And getting that different perspective and just being able to talk really openly with someone and recognizing that even if someone's incredibly senior, they're still human and they've got the same challenges that you have in a different way. And I think that's really helpful to people in their careers. So yeah, it's definitely helped me.
No, that's great. That's great. I think, yeah, it's interesting, people's different experiences. I think from, one of mine, I think I realised now looking back that I was mentored quite a lot, though I didn't seek someone and go, could you be my mentor? But you realise you were, go to them and you would listen to what they had to say, and it kind of, their advice would resonate and you kind of acted on it. And it was like a guide. There was a guide there. It wouldn't tell you what to do, but it was just enough to make you think, oh yeah, or just give you the confidence. Actually, I think I can do that. Or I can do that and achieve it. So I think it really is important. But I think sometimes we don't know we're being mentored. But I would say it's absolutely, you need both. You need the coaching and mentoring. I think it's really important for all of us, really.
Yeah. Do you know, that makes total sense you're saying that. There's a lady when I was in my first job in my early 20s who I'm still friends with this day actually, and she mentored me. Actually, she took me under her wing, and I'm not sure I realised it at the time, but she absolutely did, and kind of gave me so much knowledge and insight and things. But yeah, it's just having somebody who can give you something different, isn't it, and help you to kind of, like we said, if you want to make change, it can feel really scary, and having someone who's on your team who kind of wants to help you, that's super great.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, and you just trust, that you can, they're going to listen to you and they're going to offer something. They're not necessarily going to tell you. It's not about telling you what you've got to do, but offer you something that you can kind of think about and work on, which is really key. So Jeni, busy lady, you're busy coaching and mentoring, or coaching particularly, but lots of other people. But I'd like to know now, what do you do to kind of chill out? What sort of hobbies do you do? What do you do in your spare time?
Gosh, well, I love travel and adventures, slightly few and far between, but that's cool. So yeah, I love exploring the world and doing that. But I've been trying to do quite a lot locally in London. So I was doing paddleboarding in the summer in a marina called St. Katharine's Docks. I've recently taken up ballet lessons, which was something, honestly, and I love it so much. It was something when I was still in my corporate job, I was like, oh, I'd love to do that, but I'm far too busy. I don't have time for it. So I was like, do it. And I love it. I go every Monday without fail. It's amazing. So doing things that kind of are a bit different, a bit active, that push me out of my comfort zone, I really love. And I really like nice dinner and nice wine as well.
So Jeni, would you like to tell the listeners and those people watching as well, how do they find you?
Sure. So you can come and check out my website, which is jenicarroll.com. It's JeniCarroll.com. I have to spell it all the time. I need an easier name. So go check out my website. I'm also on Instagram as Jeni Carroll Coaching, and on LinkedIn as well. Always super happy to have new connections, answer any questions, have some conversations. Yeah, come and say hi, so that you've listened to the podcast, and I'd love to chat.
Oh, how wonderful. Well, please do go and check out Jeni's website and see what she's up to. Now, Jeni, we're nearly there, but I love to ask my guests if they've got one piece. Now, I always say one piece. Obviously, sometimes, stretches into two, but, one piece of advice they would give anyone who's thinking to do what you did and maybe jump from the corporate world into running their own business.
I think the biggest thing for me is you're never going to feel ready. But if there's something there and it's exciting you, then just go for it. And even if that is just one small step, just go for it. Don't wait to feel ready, because I don't think you ever will. And enjoy this journey. It is a journey. You can't go from corporate and success to being successful overnight in business. You have to relearn, you have to regrow, and part of that is so wonderful. So just kind of enjoy that process. That's probably two pieces of advice, isn't it? Sorry.
Oh no, but that's great. That's great. And I'd also like to ask you, Jeni, what's the vision now for you? Because you're nearly a year, aren't you? Nearly a year down. And I just wondered what the vision is now. What's the future looking like?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I was actually in the hairdressers this week sketching out my plans for 2022. So looking at kind of developing my products, so doing a bit more of a mastermind for corporate women, because it's when I was in corporate, I didn't really know about masterminds. So I think there's something really exciting there. I actually also love to run retreats, which was my original sort of thought when I was running my own business. So starting to think about how that might work, and I've also decided that I might go and do a master's degree next year in positive psychology and coaching psychology. So
Wow,
just thought, why not? It sounds super exciting, super relevant to what I do. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking for 2022.
that's going to be a busy year, Jeni.
To make sure I don't get overwhelmed, I do need to take my own advice.
I don't know about setting up retreats. You'll be on one. And I was thinking that's rather good. I'd like to come on one of your retreats. You must do that.
Oh yes, you definitely have an invite to the first one.
Yeah. Well, look, I thank you so much. I really, you have got lots to share, and I think there's a lot of people out there that set up businesses not that long ago and are really keen to know how everyone's getting on. I'd love you to come back, maybe 6 months, 8 months time or something, and let us know how 2022 is going and if those retreats have been set up or not.
Yeah.
And also, to everyone, please, check out Jeni. If the retreats are coming, if it's something you want, if you've been thinking about coaching, go and see Jeni, give her a call. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. It's been fantastic having you on with Tracy today.
You're so welcome. I've really enjoyed it. It's been great. So thanks for having me.
Well, we will stay in touch and hopefully you'll be back soon.